Welcome back to Casting the Net, where we seek to untangle the wide net that public health casts on our community and how it affects everyday people just like yourself. Today, we're delving into the topic of vital statistics. Vital stats serves as the bookends of human existence, that is, birth and death records. These documents not only mark the beginning and end of life, but also hold valuable insights into our family histories. Join us today as we uncover the significance and intricacies of these records, exploring how they shape our understanding of the past and the present. Today, we are thrilled to have our Director of Vital Statistics, Rosie Meza, who will help us in this conversation. Rosie actually originally hails from California, where she was born and raised. She was called to Tyler, Texas, and has called it home since 2012. She is married, a proud mother of 3 sons, and grandmother to 4 grandchildren. With a robust career dedicated to healthcare here in Tyler, she worked for both Azalea Ortho and Texas Spine and Joint. Before joining our team here at Net Health, she also played a crucial role in managing her husband's construction business. For the past 6 years, she has been an integral part of the Vital Statistics Department, including serving as the director for one of those years. So she's here today, and welcome to Casting the Net, Rosie.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is an exciting topic because this can be somewhat a morbid topic, as some know. You know, we're talking about death. But yes, I've been with Net Health 5 years, and Rosie is always a joy to talk to when I go to 815. We chat it up. It could be because we're both Hispanic and we have some cultural similarities, so we enjoy chatting it up. But the first time that I was introduced to Vital Stats as an intern with Net Health, Terrence took me down to 815, gave me a little walkthrough of the room that y'all have all the records in, and I was pretty taken aback. I was like, I didn't realize that, one, there was so much paper involved, so many books.
So many decades of history.
Yeah, all in
that
one room. In that one room. So I was like, I don't know what I was thinking, but I didn't think that it looked like that. So I was, like I said, kind of taken aback. I was like, it's somebody's job to keep track of all this stuff. And I think it's something that's kind of removed from people's minds, because until you kind of see it, you're like, oh, it's actually somebody's job to keep track of every birth and every death. So first question, how much time is covered in the records that are held in our vital stats records?
Well, we go back, I believe deaths are 1910. 1910.
Wow.
So and even the update myself, because I've been a Net Health employee for a little over 12 years now. So making sure I personally know when somebody dies is, if you die within the city limits of Tyler, then you and Marisol and Priscilla, y'all would file that person's death record. If they physically die within the city of Tyler.
Well, we don't file it. We store it there. But yes, we have stored anyone who has passed within that time in the city limits of Tyler. That is correct.
Okay, so if somebody dies outside the city limits of Tyler,
that's the county. That's the county record, so it goes to the county clerks.
So for here, we'll go to Smith County.
Yes.
So, Lord willing, knock on, whenever my number is called by the Lord, if I'm in Chapel Hill or if I'm in Noonday or Lindale and I pass, then my immediate family, they would go to the Smith County Registrar's office, the clerk's office.
If it was recorded, if your time of death was recorded, wherever it was recorded, and if it's Smith County, outside the city limits, then yes, it's going to go to the county clerks, Smith County clerks. Death records are they're different than filing a birth or trying to obtain a birth, per se. Those get filed within the city or the county where they passed.
Okay. But if I were to pass in the city limits of Tyler, say like if I'm driving on on 110, 155 north going towards UT Health East Texas, and I'm in a bad traffic accident, I'm in the city limits on 155 South, then it would be
with
Net
us.
Health. But if I continued on 155 where I'm outside
Out.
the city limits,
Then it's gonna
it would
go to
be
the county.
Okay.
That is correct.
So it's not a comfortable situation to talk about, to think about.
No, but I mean, hey, if it were to happen, now you know.
Yeah, and I brought this up in a presentation that I did a few months ago, and I don't know if I had mentioned this to you, but I actually had one of those social media deep thought, random comic ideas that I will never see my own death certificate, like my actual death certificate. Like everybody listening, you will never see your own death certificate.
No, it'd be kind of weird, kind of scary if you did.
It's like the concept of like the brain named itself, like those existential
How do we
kind
name
of.
the brain the brain?
Yeah. Who
How
named
did
the
it
brain?
know?
Yeah, we've had people that come in and I think they kind of either mess up or either they're looking at the application and they mention death and we're like, wait, death certificate for yourself? No, birth. Yeah, you don't want to ask for a death certificate quite yet.
So everybody listening, you can get your own birth certificate. You cannot and should not ever see your own death certificate.
No.
If you do, something went seriously wrong. And
Yeah. No, you don't want to ask for your death certificate.
But a follow-up question, who can fill out a death certificate application for
To request.
For a family member?
It has to be immediate family members, a spouse, brother, sister, grandparent, by blood or marriage. A grandchild cannot. Cousins cannot. Uncles, aunts cannot.
So if you're immediate family member, you can.
Mm-hmm. There's exceptions. Like, it's your ex-wife. You're not married anymore, but you need one because, I don't know, insurance policy. You can request it, but you have to provide those documents. You have to bring those documents with you. You have to show us, prove. Your name has to be listed, stuff like that. Then there's exceptions with documentation, of course.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Because looking at the actual application for doing a death record, and that's kind of another question. Do y'all say death record or death certificate? Because me going back to 90s hip hop, Ice Cube.
Death records.
Death records.
Well, there was Death Row Records.
Death Row Records.
But then
that's right.
Ice Cube had an album called Death Certificate. So I'm just out of curiosity, is the proper term, is it death record or death certificate as far as the actual document that you get?
It's a death certificate. It says certificate. But I mean, I think we call it either or.
It's either or.
It's interchangeable.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I catch myself saying death record or death certificate. So, I mean, but it's a certificate. So it should be death certificate.
Okay. So doing the application to get a death certificate, it has a line where it asks what's the main purpose of getting this record. And there's, like you mentioned, for insurance reasons. Another reason for closing accounts. And so I recently had a family member who lost her mother. So closing accounts, this is utility bills?
Bank accounts, loans, anything like that. Any kind of joint account that you had where you were both listed, then you have to bring, say if the water company is asking for one to, shut it down, transfer the name or whatever, then they have to provide you with a document, something saying, or at least by showing that the bill has both of y'all's names, then bring that, and then we can take that as proof of it.
So you're saying that the statistics of this person's life are vital to many areas.
Yeah.
Somebody's life that you wouldn't even think of.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking about the term vital stats. So checking somebody's vitals, it's the things that are concretely important, because when they say check this person's vitals, it's like they're either alive or they're dead. It's like whatever this EKG or whatever the machine is reading is vital to whether you know if this person's still alive or not. So the statistics of these people's lives are vital to being able to close accounts. So it's like I was just thinking about the terminology of why it's called vital statistics.
So everybody listening, at least internally, if you're a health department employee, not just here for Net Health, but health departments across the state where it's termed vital statistics. Your department, Rosie, is vital statistics. But even before I started working at Net Health, I didn't know your department is titled as vital statistics. I knew y'all as, well, that's where I would go to get my birth certificate or to get a death certificate. So for everybody that's not in the health department frame of mind, you would think birth certificates, death certificates. But for us in the health department world, we'll more commonly say vital statistics. It's the vital statistics department. And I know the language may sound a little different. Like if somebody calls and, like if they were to call my phone number and they say, well, where do I go to get a birth certificate? Well, you would contact our vital statistics department.
And some areas call it birth and death records.
Yeah, some would say birth and death records.
Some websites
Some call
have
it just the Hall of Records.
Really? That's one
The Hall of Records.
And out in California, you go to the Hall of Records to get your marriage license, your birth certificate.
Is the Justice League there? That sounds like that's an official, like that's like a regal title to it. The Hall of Records.
Yeah.
Like after you say it, you got to pause a bit.
Yeah.
I was used to that. And then when vital statistics, it's like, what?
So, what is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
That comes to show, again, we've mentioned this kind of theme across just public health in general, how things are different. Like just crossing into another county, crossing into another state, how it can be kind of just terminology can range, and sometimes it causes confusion,
Yes.
especially people that might move from California to Texas. Like, well, y'all do things differently over here.
Now, there's another death certificate situation that I've encountered receiving phone calls where it's an immediate relative, and even at funeral homes may call my phone number at times where they want to do a transit or transfer application.
A burial transit permit?
A burial transfer permit to where the person, their family may live in Dallas or Shreveport or a different city outside of Smith County, outside of Tyler, and they're wanting to have that person buried in Dallas or Houston, Austin, wherever it may be. So I was surprised receiving calls like that because it shows the statewide impact that you and your coworkers, shout out to Marisol and Priscilla, that the variety of calls, the variety of situations that you have to encounter on a daily basis. I'm only assuming every day is different.
Yes.
So, on what y'all get, but if for those that are listening that you live in a different city, like you live outside of Tyler and you have a relative that dies in Tyler, they wouldn't have to be buried in Tyler. They could be buried wherever.
Wherever.
But that would be a form, an application that would need to be completed.
We have funeral homes that are requesting some because families want to take the deceased, to another country.
Interesting. I never even, it's like maybe it was in their last will and testament. It's like, I want to be cremated and I want you to throw me into the Adriatic Sea.
Into the ocean or...
Wow, I never even thought about that.
They don't necessarily have to be buried here in Tyler.
Yeah.
And some people think that because they lived here in Tyler, we have the death certificate here. not understanding that it's not where they lived, it's where they passed.
That's the determining location, is where they passed.
Where they passed.
The moment that the coroner listed this person expired at this specific time, at this specific location. And that's kind of the language of, because some people say they expired, or the person's passed, or they've gone away.
It's a little more palatable.
They've transitioned. I don't know. Do you have a preferred way of saying that somebody has died?
Passed. I don't like to. Where did they die? I don't like to say that. I personally rather just, so where did they pass? What's the location? I don't like to ask. I don't know. It just sounds like, oh, well, where'd your husband die? Like, yeah, that's too cold. I don't know. Me personally, I like to say past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, I think that's a reflection of your personality, Rosie, that it's a grim subject, but you still put some positivity in that. Well, positivity might not be the right word.
No, I don't know. Just be careful how you say it, I guess. I'm just trying to not be so harsh because, they already know, my so-and-so just
there's already the finality
died,
of it.
Pay some respect
they're not
to the
here
deceased.
anymore.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
It
just sounds like too, like, I don't know.
In college, I had the opportunity to deliver flowers. It was my first job when I was at Texas State. My first semester there, I had a job delivering flowers. Shout out to the shop in San Marcos. It was a fun job. But I got to
delivering flowers to anybody or
yes.
whatever the job called for.
Yeah. So, but I ended up delivering to a lot of cemeteries and a lot of like casket sprays for the deceased. And I wish they would have warned me, because I didn't understand that the body was going to be, because some would be delivering like the day of, the actual funeral. And
so there may be moments you're
a few
supposed to be showing up?
Yeah, like a few hours before the actual service.
Oh.
And I remember my first time, this was like my first few weeks on the job, and they were like, yeah, we need you to deliver over here to this funeral home. This was in San Marcos. And I park in the back, and there was a little entrance specifically. They had a sign on the door for people who deliver flowers. And me unknowingly walking in there with this big flower spray in my hand. And I come into the back, and I'm rounding the corner, and I see the casket. But it was like facing, and I didn't know that the service was this day. So I walk around the front of this casket, and the deceased is in the casket. And I'm there all by myself.
The casket's open? And you're
yes.
walking around?
Yes.
Well, at least it wasn't during the actual funeral service itself. You're walking.
Well, that's
well, it's pretty close.
Well, that's another thing. Well, we'll get to that. But I come around the corner of this casket to put the flowers, and I see the deceased person, and I was like, man, I wish they would have told me. Like, I thought the service was going to be like the next day or something, and I was just like prepping the space. And it's kind of eerie because the funeral home, all the lights are off. There's literally like one overhead light like pointing down on the casket. Nobody's there. I'm by myself. And I was like, oh, man. And I get back in the van, and I call Gail. Shout out Gail. I called Gail, and I was like, hey, I kind of wish you would have given me a heads up.
That's on-the-job training right there.
Yeah. And but there were instances, and I did let them know that I wasn't going to do this anymore. There were instances where they would call in like day of, and I'd walked in a few times where like there were already people in the seats and stuff. And I felt really disrespectful because I was like, I don't know this individual.
Who that person was.
And I'm like, there's this college kid walking in, and we weren't dressed like suit and tie to deliver this stuff, and I just felt somewhat disrespectful. I was like, they had me walk in and like put this thing on the casket, and there's like people in the service like is about to start, and I was just like, I called them and I was like, hey, you got to make sure that it's either like 4 or 5
earlier
hours
that day,
4 or 5 hours
or the day before,
and I was not comfortable. But this goes back to paying respects to the deceased, And I was like, I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. And they fixed it. It's like policy change.
They're already going through a hard time, so it's like you have to try to watch how you how you address it, because
have a little reverence for death in general.
Yeah, we've had people with once they get it, we give them the actual record, tears start to just roll out. It's like, oh
yeah, still fresh wound.
So sorry.
So unofficially, y'all are social worker, like mental health therapists, as far as like that actual moment that you've printed the death certificate and you're physically handing it to the relative coming to pick up that death certificate. Like that, I'm sure even though it's in a public lobby, it's still somewhat an intimate, private moment for that person receiving that actual tangible
and
reminder.
Some get very emotional. Some start to tell you stuff, and I mean, you have to listen. We have to listen. We have to just, consider, and we have to. Well, try to Sometimes you don't know what to say, but I mean, the right word will come out at the moment, because they just start to let it out, and it's like, oh, okay, it's really hard. I mean, it isn't just fun and games. It's when it comes up to that topic, and they come, or when some people can't get it because there's family issues going on, and it's like you're just kind of like the middle person. Like, I'm sorry, I know you want your ex-spouse, or you said you're the spouse, but you're not listed, and you want the death certificate, but I mean,
ooh, now we're getting into the spicy stuff.
Yeah, that kind of popped in my head. Are there types of people that cannot, or that aren't allowed, they legally aren't allowed to get a death certificate for somebody? Like you just mentioned, if it's an ex-spouse.
I mean, if there's no documentation, if there's what we require is not there, then you can get it. No matter how many times you tell me you were married and you're the spouse. The drama that happens outside of that, because his kids, didn't like you, her kids didn't like you, and they didn't list you as a spouse, because that's the most common thing.
Or like in the will, it's like you're trying to get these funds or something like that. And this is required.
But a lot of the times it's like, whoever was the informant to the funeral home, most of the time it's a child. If it's an older person, or someone, and say they didn't like that new spouse, they didn't list them. They list them as not married, or divorced, or widowed, or whatever else the case was, but not married. So
you could have one customer where you have to do the gentle bereavement moment, and then your next customer for a death certificate, it could become a daytime talk show.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Yes.
Shift gears really quickly. It's like Jerry Springer.
Like Jerry.
Well, what do you mean? I'm not listed. I am the spouse, and his son didn't like me, or the daughter didn't like me, and it's like, I'm sorry, that's a personal problem y'all have to take care of, because if you're not listed as a spouse, you just, unless you bring me, social security papers, if there's something going on that's addressed to you, insurance, if he left anything, or she, bring me that, and then, hey, you're more than welcome to get it.
If this isn't like, for all y'all listening, if this isn't a PSA for you to get your affairs in order, because you never know, when it's your time.
And to tell your family how much you love them, and to make sure everything is on the up and up when it's time.
Yeah.
For your immediate family to come to get your death certificate. There's no situations, there's no issues.
You don't want siblings fighting over this, because
that's heartbreaking.
Some are trying to claim stuff, some are not. They're fighting over this and that. They don't want me to get this. That's why I can't get the death certificate. And
it's all salacious now. This is my popcorn out.
It's really sad. For real. It's sad that a lot of times they say, it's kind of a story as old as time, right? People come out of the woodworks when death comes, and it's sad that, like, for, say, the children or people in these people's families aren't invested until there's something on the table too.
Exactly.
It's like Oh man,
then you want to get involved.
That's heartbreaking.
Yes,
man.
yes, and we have that a lot too. And the only reason how we kind of put one and one together is because they don't know for sure where they passed. Here we have a child. They don't know for sure where they passed. They don't know the date. All they heard is that they passed. So then that means that can tell me that you were not involved in your parents' life. But now, all of a sudden, you want a death certificate. For what?
It's like the devil's in the details. It's like, man, you don't know anything about what just happened. Mm-hmm. It's like you're just here to collect
something.
Yeah, collect something.
Mm-hmm. Man. That is really sad. Those are very sad moments.
Man, Rosie, the stories you could tell.
I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. Please, I don't ever want to be in one of those.
Yeah.
Never.
But
yeah.
If your department could be embodied by a movie, then it would be The Lion King. Because the circle of life, because of death certificates and
inheriting
birth
a kingdom.
certificates, and inheriting the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Everything the light
Everything
touches.
That's what I was going to get to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Will one day be yours.
Yeah. Unless you're not listed on my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great.
Oh my goodness. People die, people live every day.
So the types of interactions that you have for individuals that are coming to receive a death certificate for an immediate family member, it's the same. I'm assuming some of the same emotions for a parent or a sibling, a daughter, son coming to get a birth certificate. Now, is it the same eligibility? You have to be an immediate relative to get your birth certificate or to get somebody else's birth certificate?
Same thing. You have to be, an immediate family member. Qualified. Mm-hmm.
So,
qualified applicant.
So you can get your own birth certificate.
Yes. You can get your child's, no matter if your child is 30, 40, because we have that question a lot. Well, my son is already 18, 20, 21. That's still your child. Come and get it.
Yeah.
Now, I have learned there's a short form and a long form. So there are two different types.
We don't call them that anymore.
No?
No.
That has changed?
That's changed because, so there was a short, which is now a standard. But it was short because it was half sheet. Now it's not. Everything is one same full-size sheet.
It's like a letter size, 8.5 by 11.
Mm-hmm. So now it's a standard format, and then there's the detailed birth certificate.
So what's it's the same size? It's just probably one holds more information than the other. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what's on the detailed version that's not on the standard version?
The detailed one is always going to have, of course, your information, the parent's date of birth, the hospital information, like the name of the hospital, the time of birth, not your weight, because that's a medical record. It's the time of birth, and then of course the doctor who signed off on it and stuff like that.
Okay.
So by them putting the weight on there, that would be like a HIPAA violation, huh? Because it's like
that's medical records.
It's like, I don't want you to know how chunky I was when I was born.
And some of our older birth certificates have that information.
I was premature, so I was little bitty.
I was a little baby too. I was a 5 pound something baby.
Yeah.
I was a little bitty baby. My mom says I fit in a shoebox.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. That's what she says. She tried to put me in a shoebox for whatever reason. Probably. I don't know.
Like this is your new crib.
Maybe because I was so little. She's like, let me see if she fits in a shoebox.
Well, there has to be a way to know that you can say a phrase like that. Like, you can fit in the shoebox. Like, did you try to put
tried it because I was so little.
Have you asked her that? Like,
no.
Well, hey,
I need to
next
ask
family
her
meal,
that.
Just,
like,
or you just want to call mom about the
do you
loo.
say that I can actually fit in a shoebox?
It's funny how what people use to compare. Like some people be like, "Oh, he was no bigger than a loaf of bread," or a little sack of potatoes.
Did you put a loaf of bread right next to me?
A little sack of potatoes, or that. It's just funny. Everybody has a different term.
The shoebox. Okay.
But short form, long form.
Yes.
I recently visited you guys. That was actually I think that was earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
I had to come and get the form. I forget what I was getting updated. It could have been my driver's license or something. But for the longest time, my mom had that document,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't until after college when I moved up here that I was like, I I need physical copies of all this stuff. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you get at that age where it's like, for the longest, you go to your parent for this stuff. It's like, hey, what's this? What's this? What's this? You know, you got a copy of this, or can I scan this? And then eventually, it was like, I got to get my own
Like
copies.
time you gotta get it yourself.
Yeah, I got to get my own copies of this stuff to have it, you know, readily available. But
So with the eligibility of why you need to get a birth certificate, or a few things that are different than what's listed on the death certificate form, as far as my youngest daughter just graduated high school, so she can get her own birth certificate now that she's 18. She can get it herself.
She could get it. I mean, she could have gotten it too when she was 17, 16, as long as she meets the ID requirements.
Okay. I know common reasons for school-related enrolling into school. For sports
require a birth certificate. Housing, special programs that are out there that require you have a birth certificate, passport, you know.
So if you are needing to renew your passport, do you need to have an updated copy of your birth certificate?
You're going to need one to submit for your driver's license renewal. A lot of people don't know that. Prepare. They will ask you for it. So if you're about to renew your driver's license, make sure you have your certified
can't be a copy
of your birth certificate.
Okay, wait. Okay, so copy. Is that just a regular throw it in a machine and scan it?
Yes.
Or okay,
It's got to be a certified copy, not just a regular copy.
So what makes it a certified copy? What do you
It's
mean
got to
by
be
that?
on security paper.
oh yeah.
on
So
paper.
so when you scan it, the
watermarks.
the watermarks pop out. Yeah, when the light hits it the right way and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I bring up that specific topic because the vital statistic of having a birth certificate, you need a birth certificate for a lot of things, just in life, period. So the importance of you and Marisol and Priscilla, y'all affect a lot of people's lives every single day. Like just the normal day-to-day operation of somebody coming in and getting a birth certificate, you may not realize how important that document is for whatever you're going to need. Maybe not that day, but within that year, or next 2 years, or 3 years, or whenever you're going to need to be asked, like, do you have a birth certificate? Man, where is my birth certificate? And then there's that paranoia kind of comes in. Well, I don't know where I got my birth certificate. Like, where do I go to get a birth certificate if I need one? Well, you come to 815 North Broadway, Tyler, Texas, 75702, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I have that committed to memory.
Yes.
And that
903-535-0031.
Dang.
Shall I continue?
That's pretty impressive.
Continue. Go on.
We're at the corner of North Broadway Avenue and Gentry Parkway. Rosie
Next
and
door
her
neighbors to Salvation Army.
Yeah.
and actually, it's funny, but it's not funny when I've explained it in doing community presentations where I'll give the street address and then I'll say, "Well, they're located next to the Tyler Municipal Court." Oh, I know where that is. And they say, I know where the municipal court is, almost with pride.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say that at first? Yeah, I know exactly where that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people are like visual, landmarks. It's like don't give me numbers and names of streets. Give me landmarks.
It's like everybody's been to the municipal court, so
yeah.
It's like being an adult going to the municipal court is the same nostalgic memory of being a kid going to the zoo or going on a field trip. It's like you go to municipal court to pay a speeding ticket or parking fine you have or for city jury duty.
You're not.
It's one of those places where it's almost like a rite of passage being.
I was gonna say,
Tylerite.
I didn't know if you were throwing shade at them, being like you comparing them to animals, like they're like like at the zoo.
Or
It's
if it's a field trip to the park or, but people like you were saying landmarks. People know if you give them a point of reference. Like
Sure.
Like I could say, our vital statistics department is 2 blocks down from the Goodman Museum, or it's like we're around the corner from the Super One on Beckham. It's like, it's kind of close enough. But just municipal court is like immediate. Like I can say, like I said, Salvation Army a few times to people, and where's the Salvation Army at?
Yeah.
It's on the other side of the street from the municipal court. Oh, okay, I know where it is now.
Yeah.
Or by the Moore's grocery lofts. It's like we're right up the street from. I feel like most people know where that's at. Nah, probably not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Well, some do, some don't. And then you have the generation of Tyler, Smith County residents. They'll remember what used to be at that location.
Right.
It's like
Things change.
just like your offices. It used to be a grocery store before it became a health department.
See, I was shocked
Back
when
in
I
the
heard
day.
So
that
you got to
one.
say what it is and then what it used to be.
Yeah.
You got to explain for both.
Depending on what generation-
year were you born?
yeah.
What year were you born? It used to be this. Now it's this.
And now it's, okay, I know where that is now.
That's how we have to describe when we have to send someone to the county when they can't get their detail done with us. And it's like, okay, the annex building.
Like, where's that?
Where's that at?
Yeah.
Behind Catty Corner, behind the main courthouse. Which one? Downtown, the main courthouse. The old JCPenney building. Okay. They say old JCPenney building, and it's like
immediate.
They got it. I never knew it was an old JCPenney building until I heard it.
I
but
just learned that piece of information. I did not know that.
yeah, it was an old JCPenney.
So to go back to the I guess the eligibility, or not eligibility, but the where you're born. So if you're born within city of Tyler, then a person would come to your office.
If they want a detailed birth certificate, then that's where you get your detailed birth certificate.
Now, if they're born in Smith County,
Then they would have to go to the Smith County clerks.
okay, so same thing if they're born in...
But that's only if they want their detailed. Because if they're okay with the standard birth certificate, then we can provide a standard birth certificate for anywhere in Texas. As long as we have it was entered in the, on the remote
the state
site
registry.
and the state registry, yes. Then and we have access to it, then we can provide them with
Okay,
the standard.
I just learned something new now. So if you're born anywhere in Texas, you can get a standard
A standard birth
birth
certificate.
certificate from our vital statistics office at 815 North Broadway.
There you go again.
because it is housed in a database. I have access to that database. So aside from the physical records that are housed, but that the physical records that are housed at 815 is a living library because
That's correct.
y'all are still punching in. Y'all still have physical records that y'all have to print
That
out.
we have to print out.
for new births and new deaths. So that library is still growing.
It's
But-
definitely growing.
But y'all have a digital library that you retrieve
From the
these-
state.
From the state. From okay,
That's the access that we have from the state.
got you.
Now, the detailed birth certificate that you mentioned, if you're born within the city limits of Tyler, a person would get it from you,
us.
from your office. If they're born outside of Tyler, if they're born in Smith County, then they would go to the county
The
clerk.
county clerks.
If they're born in Texas but outside of Smith County, how would they get their birth certificate?
In Texas,
If they're born in Texas but outside of Smith County,
and they need
and
the
they want
detailed,
they want the detailed one.
they have to contact the county where they were born. Either their county clerk's office, or if there's like a city hall, every city, every county is going to be different to whatever the kind of department they have.
Going back to what Thomas alluded to earlier from our previous podcast, where what we provide for Tyler and Smith County, maybe you may need to get that same service, but in a different way from a different county.
It's not a one size fits all kind of thing with public health. It can vary for your given situation and scenario, unfortunately.
Now, if it's somebody like we were talking earlier, somebody that's California, for example, or from another state, because I've received calls from people like that. How can they get their birth certificate? So what would they do?
They contact the state vital statistics where they were born, or if they know the county, we usually always recommend that they contact their county clerks because it's probably going to be easier to get it from their county clerks
In that state where they were born.
Mm-hmm. Rather than the state itself.
You know what my response would be? Google it. No, I'm just nah.
That's how we solve everything.
That's what we kind of want to say sometimes because it's like, how did you Google our information or how did you find us? I'm sure you Googled us. So Google the rest. But we can't say that.
Yeah.
So I know there are other situations to where a parent will do a home birth. Mm-hmm. So if the mom delivers her baby at home, she lives outside of Tyler within Smith County, that will go to the county clerk's office. Mm-hmm. Okay. The form itself I'm looking at, it's so let's say somebody gives birth today. Mm-hmm. Is there a set number of days by when somebody has to file a birth certificate for their child?
Within 7 days, it should be filed.
So within a week.
Should.
Oh, well, you're emphasizing should. They don't have to. It's okay if it's more than 7 days. It's preferred if it's 7 days or less.
I mean, it's not going to hurt, so that the parent doesn't get all worked up about it, But it should be. It should be. It doesn't happen like that all the time.
So what about those parents? They don't know what to name their kid yet, and it gets to day 5, day 6, day 7.
Say if it was a hospital birth, we've had that happen. So there's baby so and so, baby Meza, baby Garcia, baby or infant of, until the parent decides. On whatever, if it's got to get filed, it's gonna get filed.
Oh, so y'all are right in a temporary name.
That's what it gets filed under until the parent, goes back to getting that taken care of. But by then, now it's gonna require some kind of court order because it's already left the hospital. It's already gotten filed to the state. It's already in our little room. So we have a birth certificate with baby so and so.
So it's as if they're given a name by default.
It's like if they probably didn't want to be given.
Oh.
Do you by any chance, I don't know, do you have like an average of how many babies are born in Smith County or anything like that? Do y'all have any numbers like that?
I mean, I can just give you a number about how many we get within a month, and but that doesn't necessarily mean that they were born that month.
Let's hear it.
So, say within a month of new babies, 300 and something, 200 and something.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a pretty big number.
So, same question, but for death certificates. Mm-hmm. Does the average number of births
kind of goes hand in hand?
Equal
Yeah.
the average number of deaths? Like, do we have
Sometimes we get more death.
Is our population growing or is our population decreasing on average?
I honestly feel like it goes hand in hand, to be honest, because it's rare where one of us is receiving more than the other. But in a month, maybe 1 month it could be that we got 400 and something death certificates. We got 300 and something births. So we're off a little, More are gone, but there's times where we get more births than deaths.
Depending on what time of day I'm driving along South Broadway or the Loop, it seems like there's more births.
There's a lot more births. Like when COVID hit, there was a lot of deaths, but there was a lot of births too.
Baby making?
Yes.
People were at home?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a lot of births.
So
studies were showing.
So the pandemic started. I remember Thomas and I, we've talked about this over the last, it's kind of sobering. It's been more than 4 years now since the pandemic started.
Wow.
Just let that sink in, everybody. It feels like it's been a lot longer than 4 years. It was only 4 years, but I remember when it started. It was mid-March of 2020 when everything shut down, and it was like we're living a scene from The Walking Dead. Empty streets everywhere. So
Pretty scary.
I was thinking of people being at home 9 months after March. That goes into December 2020, January 2021, February 2021. I don't know if there was a boom in the number of births that occurred because of when the pandemic started. But let's say 5, 10, 15 years from now, maybe we'll see it in the school enrollment numbers. If there are more students at school districts based on whatever age they would be. So if that was 2021, so now these will be 3-year-olds. And here we are in 2024. So in 2-3 years, it'd be interesting if there are going to be a larger number of kids enrolling into pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, just to see, how there was the baby boomer generation after World War II.
And we might not even
in population.
see it because there's a lot of kids that are actually staying home for homeschooling now. That's changed a lot. So
they say that it wouldn't be called a boom. I was just looking it up here, but maybe a baby burst.
A burst,
just like
not a boom.
A little tick, a little uptick, maybe. And
the baby burst of 2020,
and they're still doing
2021.
They're still doing studies on this, like whether domestic violence went up because people were forced to be at home with their spouses more, and frustration, tension and things like that.
I'm sure there was a lot of that.
Yeah, so it's like they've been doing a lot.
Well,
of studies on
spousal abuse, child abuse.
Yeah,
the being in close proximity on a continual basis has effects on a person's psyche, whether it's a parent-child dynamic, or if it's a spouse dynamic, or if it's a multi-generational family dynamic, or if it's people sharing a living space. Just we're not going to really see that until 5 years, 10 years from now.
It's like the caveman had to go out and hunt. He's like, now I gotta stay home. I had a break, It's like
had a break.
There's a wrench been thrown in the machine. Now I gotta stay at home with you all day now.
I bet there was a lot of family bonding too. A lot of
sure.
I
think it caused a lot of people to reconsider and prioritize some things. It's like, oh, it's actually kind of sobering. I got plenty of time with my family now, and it's like, I actually kind of like this, It's like,
Terrence is like, I'm not
bothered. He's like,
well, no, I'm not looking down on the conversation. I'm still looking over at the application for the birth certificate. That another perk is that you can ask for a protective sleeve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which not everybody may think about until...
Which I paid for. I paid. What's the price difference? Wasn't it like
$1?
$1, yeah. I paid the extra $1. Got that nice, thick. It's not cheap plastic. It's like a nice.
It's durable plastic, and the reason I bring it up is that when I had my birth certificate, I didn't have it in a plastic sleeve. I've had to buy a newer birth certificate in the last couple of years because when you have a birth certificate not in a sleeve, just having paper in a folder or in a cabinet or somewhere in your house, and
you can tell them, Terrence, you got spaghetti
and you finally
on it.
Found it. No, it gets all withered and worn and discolored, and that $1 comes in very handy to keep your birth certificate looking as fresh and as
really
polished
does.
as the day you were actually born. Like, it still looks like an actual new birth certificate, like the day that you bought it from our Vital Statistics Department at 815 North Broadway.
Yeah.
You're welcome for that plug, Rosie.
Yeah. Y'all gonna know where it's at. By the end of this episode.
It's so funny though because when we asked
but that sleeve makes a difference.
We asked them, would you like, the plastic sleeve, a protective plastic sleeve? How much is that? $1. Oh no, okay.
It's amazing.
okay.
It's
Like, yeah, like a dollar.
Like
A
what
dollar
would
is
have
a
been
price point.
Yeah, what would have been the deciding price point for them to say yes versus no? And it's like it's clearly not $1. What if
But
I would have
it's
said
funny,
20 cents?
though. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, okay, a lot of times they say no, but then when they hear the next person and they're getting one, once you're already about to give it to them, oh, can I get that sleeve after all? Or there's times that they walk out and they come back in, I'll take the sleeve after all. It's like, I knew you were going to want it. You could have just said yes from the get-go.
He spilled a little coffee on it when he got in the car, and he's like,
Or when it's raining, it's like, you're really not going to want it. You're going to get it all wet. But hey, come back. Just buy another birth certificate.
Yeah.
So how often does it happen? Like you mentioned, they get their certificate but not have the sleeve on it, and then they walk out and they come back in a minute or two later, or later that day, or
every day.
It's gonna be one of those experiences. They come back the next day with a soggy, mushy piece of paper in their hand.
Like, can I get that sleeve?
It's every
can
day.
you-
They
print
got
me
to
another
get
one?
the whole new.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just print
get
me another
another.
one.
It's like when you say, I told you.
But you can't say that. You don't want to say it to them.
But that's a good segue because the physical records, and I always thought this was really cool. This was kind of one of the things that kind of blew me away when I first got to visit Vital Stats as an intern. The physical records, opening up some of those old books and seeing just how old some of that paper is.
So, what's the oldest birth certificate that y'all have in this new term that Thomas has just introduced? I didn't really think about in the living library.
Yeah,
1884.
So 1884.
yeah.
We have some that are they're in a little, it looks like a little flashcard. It's just a small little thing like that.
And I mean, it doesn't transition well over audio, but like if I could show some of this paper, man, it's almost like if you'd blow on it, it would deteriorate.
Yeah.
And it's just going to turn to dust.
And some of the copies, since, we have to get this paper, some of it comes it looks like a charcoal paper, depending on the year. And the writing is in white.
Interesting.
So when we have to make copies, of these onto the certified, paper, it just doesn't come out so.
It doesn't transfer well.
No. So then we get, people that will question. It's like, well, why is it like that? Well, I mean, it's because the type of paper that the original.
Let me show you the original real fast, and then you can ask me that question again.
And then some of them will, they'll make a joke. Oh, it's because I'm old, huh? It's like, I didn't say that, but you mean if you want to put it that way. They just, they crack jokes.
Like, you're not old. You're an experienced citizen.
I'll just straight up say, I didn't say that. I didn't call you old. It's just, that's how it was.
That's crazy to think about. Their record is as old as they are.
So theoretically, so you're saying this is back from 1884. So just doing the quick math, that's 140 years.
And we have very few that are
2024.
from, literally very few from those specific years within, maybe one from 84, two from 85. It's not like the other big books that you see. Mm-hmm. It's just very, very, very few.
So an older individual, say if they want to come and get a birth certificate of their parent, could they do that? Mm-hmm. So
we have a lot of children that come ask for their parents' birth certificates.
And they could get it if their parent was born in the city of Tyler.
And if it was filed, because
and
years
if it was
ago
filed.
it was
Okay,
not
that's
required to file. So sometimes we won't have it.
Okay.
Sometimes there's no existing record of theirs.
Did that recently get updated where every birth you have to have it filed? Or saying there were some years where
I'm sure
they didn't
it's
have them
been for
filed?
some years now. I don't know. I've never been told since when, but I know it's been a requirement for a while.
And so the birth certificate is the oldest one that you have is from 1884. How far back do the death certificates
1910.
go?
1910? Yeah, 1910.
For if it was recorded that the person died within
The city
of
limits.
Tyler, back to 1910. It's That is a living library.
Yeah, well, I think people sometimes forget how important not only like literature, but this is like medical records, and for us to get a better snippet of history, and how vital, scribes were, people who, because you're basically in the business of record keeping. I mean, you talk about people who...
This is journaling.
Yeah, and it's like that was... we know what we know today because some people took the time a long time ago to record historical events. People were just like, well, maybe somebody should write this stuff down. Maybe we should look.
I might want to know this one day.
Yeah,
I want my kids to know what happened.
Storytelling. This it's part of our humanity. We're in the humans are in the business of storytelling. You tell your kids about what happened or whatnot. But this kind of transitions over to how these people died. That's recorded in there. What are some of the interesting
the listed causes of death?
We have it all.
We
have natural causes. We have accidents, trauma type of situations.
Does it say in detail, like, if a person was, like, beheaded by accident?
Yeah.
Dang. That's wild.
We've had,
like decapitation,
We've actually, well, I don't think I've actually seen a decapitation, but I've seen one where they were asphyxiation.
Oh, asphyxia. Okay, yeah.
Like literally found with their head in a bag.
Wow.
And it'll state.
So I have two rabbit holes I'm gonna go down with that answer with the asphyxiation. So Smith County has a high suicide rate compared to the state average of people that commit suicide. If somebody does commit suicide, is it listed on their death certificate as suicide? Do they say it just blatantly just suicide, or do they say it in?
Because it has
do they
a section
soften
where
the
it's like
language?
suicide, accident, and so they have to check one of those options.
Some of the older ones, though, the format probably changed at some point, right? Some of the older ones, I think you had mentioned one time we were talking about it, and you said that you could see where like they scratched it out, or maybe it changed. Maybe they got some more information regarding
and they fixed it, or they use more medical terminology. Rather than just, fell off the ladder and just, busted his head open.
And it was like contusion to brain or something.
Some of the older ones we have the big books. Remember the big books on the top shelf? Those were just like, blah.
And it was like being in where Texas was like, he was going down yonder and fell in their hole.
Yeah, it's just, died of throwing up a lot.
Oh, yeah?
It's like died of, not using like
medical terms.
Sure. Just fell off. And,
now, it's been a while since I've looked in the books of the death certificates, and I remember some where it said their cause of death was gangrene, which isn't. It's a serious condition even nowadays, but I'm thinking something like gangrene would legitimately kill somebody back in the early 1900s.
Or just basic hygiene. It was like, if you didn't take care of some of this stuff, it'd creep up on you back then. Shout out to our CEO, George Roberts. I know when he does presentations, he'll list the major causes of death back from 1900 and causes of death in the modern time. And back in 1900, a common cause of death was diarrhea. And even me as a 46-year-old guy, kind of taking that in, man, you use the bathroom so much that
you died.
That you died.
He passed because of the bubble guts.
He passed because he passed.
Oh yeah. That's one way of putting it.
But then the way it was explained to me, and as I've given presentations, it's funny how people will just pinpoint to that one specific word when you see it on a slide on a presentation. It's because the person became dehydrated. but the way it was recorded was diarrhea. So back in the early 1900s, dehydration wasn't a known
Association.
health condition, a known situation. It was diarrhea, but that's just the way that modern knowledge has been able to update how deaths are
changed a lot.
listed, like you just mentioned. But it's still just kind of sobering
Like
to
you
think.
probably won't die of diabetes. You probably are more likely to die because of, certain things that hit with.
Yeah, are associated
that are
with.
because you have diabetes.
Because,
And it's like, for example, like somebody with HIV, they don't die. They die because their T count is so low that they can't fight off something like a common cold. So they don't necessarily die specifically from it's from a symptom that comes along with the illness. Yeah.
So then it becomes a situation. How far does somebody track back to what the actual cause of death is? Because these death certificates, they are stories. So going back to 1910, I don't know if you have a count of how many listed recorded deaths there are. I think if it's thousands, if it's hundreds of thousands,
a lot.
but all of those,
I don't have an actual number.
but it's like each individual death certificate tells an individual specific story about that every individual person that died within Smith County. It's like if you could pick up that death certificate and learn about that person's life by holding their death certificate. I'm sorry, there's so many puns I can go in with this. Like the volume of history.
When you get a death
that you
certificate and you look at it, it's you see
it says a lot.
the cause and or other secondary conditions and stuff like that. So and then you look at their age and it's like wow.
Yeah, some of it can be pretty sobering, I'm sure. You'd be like, you see the age and you're like, man, this person's significantly, a young person, and you're like, oh man, I'm sure it's a pretty sobering. It can be very sobering going.
And then of course we also get in infants, toddlers, drowning and stuff like that, accidents.
Yeah,
those to me I think are the hardest to have to take in.
You go home and hug your babies.
It's like
after you read those, you're like, oh,
yeah,
abuse,
stuff like that, neglect or those are the harder ones. Or when you get a new birth certificate, a newborn, and then just a few hours later, there's a death certificate filed
for that same baby. We'll say infant.
Yeah, the little newborn didn't make it.
Yeah, I was going to ask that earlier. I was thinking about. I'm glad y'all brought that up, like how that is handled. A newborn who, maybe didn't make it through the night. Or
as long as there's some kind of sign of live, one breath. There's got to be a birth and a death certificate filed.
Gotcha.
One breath it takes.
So how many years have you been a Net Health employee?
6.
For 6 years. So what would Rosie from 2024 tell Rosie from 2018 of when that Rosie started working in the vital statistics department? Like what knowledge have you gained as an employee, now as a department director, of the value that your department provides to the residents of Tyler, Smith County, to East Texas? Because you and I and your staff, we get calls, like we mentioned before, like it's just a random person maybe calling that lives here in Tyler, or they live outside of Tyler, or they live in another part of the state, or they live outside of Texas.
In Mexico too. We get calls from Mexico, other countries.
Does anything surprise you anymore?
Not anymore. Not anymore. I mean, at the beginning, yeah. I mean, I would even question, like, wait, why are they calling for this? Or, do they not know, how things work, the different states, blah, blah, blah. But now it's like, no. Now, I mean, I've been there this long already, so it's like, nothing bases me anymore. It's like, we get it all. We get it all. So, I mean, I've learned a lot. I was not in this, to me was like so new, because I come from medical field. So I just wanted to change. So I'm like, okay, well, let's see. I know nothing about this, but I'm sure it's not that difficult. And it was interesting to actually, receive birth certificates. Ooh, new babies, And then later on in time, when you start meeting people, and then now so and so here in Tyler, and then it's like, oh, their birth certificate, their baby's birth certificate, But then again, you also get your friends' death certificates. So it's like family members' death certificates, and it's like, I have in our little room, I have friends' death certificates, and it's like, that's kind of sad, But it's, I mean, overall, it's interesting. It's interesting. You kind of learn a lot from people you work with, from people you talk to, from customers, from everything in general. Everything. Like all the drama that we have to deal with, like, oh, shoot, I better make sure like you said, leave everything in writing thoroughly. Like, I don't want my kids ever to fight over nothing.
Sure.
So make sure I leave this in writing. Make sure, I mean, I don't have riches to leave my children, but anything, any little thing, I don't want them to fight over nothing.
Sure.
Their relationship to just get into this war zone because, oh, I'm trying to claim mom's this, I'm trying to claim dad's this. Make sure everything is done right to avoid all these things, because we see it all. We see it all, and it's pretty sad. It's pretty sad.
Now you're getting into making a will.
Yeah.
Or,
yeah. You learn a lot, honestly. You learn a lot when you
or
when
who
you
you
see
want
all
to
these
be
things.
your power of attorney, medical power of attorney.
It's amazing though, and I think you're kind of touching on the point because you're asking Rosie, what have you learned? And you saying that you don't want your children to be fighting over the trivial things, the temporal things that are here and gone, and
go through what all these other people go through.
Sure.
That I see.
And it's like, I don't want this to be a repeat of events of what I see on a day-to-day basis. And the perishable things versus the imperishable things. And it's like, you have each other, you know? Yeah. That's sobering.
And it's like, I don't think my kids would do that, but hey, at the end of the day, you don't know, and even if they're not going to do that, you want to make sure that it doesn't get to that, and at least everything is done right, so that there's that peace, when you lose somebody, you don't need all that extra stuff to go with it. Just finish everything smoothly, just let it go, and then just
it's like
move on.
The passing of a loved one is enough of a weight to experience in and of itself,
definitely.
let alone drama that needs to be stacked on top of
Exactly.
it, to make it that much more of a bitter moment. It's like,
and honestly, I see that with births too. Like, ladies, if you had a child with somebody, just disregard the drama and list them on the birth certificate, because then there's more drama when they're trying to either add them later on the birth certificate because, oh, I changed my mind. Now I think I'm in good terms with the dad. Let me just figure out what to do and add him to the birth certificate. Then there's issues there. Then the dad comes and then he can't get a birth certificate because he's not listed. And then we got to tell him, we got to be the ones with the bad news. Guess what? You're not listed.
So if he's not listed,
he can't get it.
He can't get
unless there's a court order.
So
interesting enough,
and then they
Rosie,
get upset.
Our previous episode for Father's Day that we recorded recently, we were talking about the importance of having mom and dad in the home and having both parents. It's what I would argue here at least I can speak for myself, we would advocate for attempting to have both parents in the home.
Well,
Yeah.
let me testify with you.
Yeah.
Brother Thomas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. to have both parents, to build a solid home and foundation,
For,
to have
for
both parents.
multiple reasons, it makes things so much easier.
And-
So much easier.
And you don't want to establish and start off, and even as something as simple as a birth certificate, to begin to split that co-responsibility. And you see it start even there
Yeah.
at the birth certificate.
We see it from just day
Yeah.
one.
Wow.
But for those situations that may occur, if they're separated or they get divorced, or if it's however the child was created, if the father wasn't listed on, then there's really nothing that he could do to be able to get his child. So if he has custody of his child,
If he has custody of the child, there's got to be legal documentation of that. He's got to bring his legal court paper, like court orders.
and if he has that, then
If he has that, then
he could get his birth
he can get a birth
for his
certificate.
child. But otherwise,
Otherwise, without that, I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I don't care if the baby has been living with you for 2 years. If you cannot provide that legal documentation,
and this would be
we
the same
cannot
for
give it to you.
this would be the same for grandparents that are
Grandparent on
that
the
are
dad's
the
side.
guardians of their grandchild.
So say if your
or if they
son
become the
is not
legal,
listed.
the legal custodian.
they have to
of their
bring legal
grandchildren,
guardianship paperwork.
Your legal guardianship.
And say if your son is not listed as a father and you're the grandparent and you want to come and get it because he's not listed, you can't get it either.
Oh, the plot thickens.
Yeah. So it doesn't only affect, the father of this child, but it affects the grandparents that are trying to be part of this life. They can't get it.
It's almost like our decisions affect other people.
Exactly. Let's just say 100%. And it will affect this child, at some point.
Yeah. Wow.
So the population census-wise for Tyler, I know it's above 100,000, whatever the actual number is. I have no idea what percentage of that 100,000 are people that are actually born in Tyler, but on a daily basis, let's just say, just for an example, Rosie, you and your staff, y'all may have 10 parents coming to do a birth certificate application, and you may have 10 people coming to do a death certificate application, just on an average day. Not that those numbers are actually,
Yeah,
but
half and half. Or sometimes it's no deaths and all births.
I mean, literally every day is different.
Every day is different because, there's times that we see it's like, oh, we didn't issue any death certificates today. It's mainly deaths when we don't issue. But every day there's birth.
Every day,
Yeah.
going back to another old school phrase, there's a sucker born every day.
Yep. Yeah.
Or do y'all celebrate if there's a day where y'all don't have any death certificates? Like going back to Ice Cube, like today was a good day. Like nobody died, or nobody had to file a death certificate.
They get filed. Every day they get filed. It's just we don't sell them every day. But every day there's death and birth records.
So when you say
filed.
being filed, it's filed by
by the state, and we got it. Like every day there's something filed.
And y'all have to print those off and put it in the book, correct? Yeah.
Okay.
Whether it just be one that was filed, two that was filed.
And that could be
but
filed
every day.
by a coroner. It could be filed by a justice of the peace, or filed by a hospital.
It gets signed
or-
off by them. But, for the most part, a funeral home is who's filing these death records.
Okay. And I didn't realize there are a lot of funeral homes in our area.
A lot.
I don't know what the number is, but like just here in
like
Tyler.
You say, Terrence, we're number one.
Yeah.
Our health stats aren't the greatest here in East Texas, in a lot of categories, unfortunately.
Talk about job security. Getting
we joke about that, folks, every now and then.
The crematory, funeral home, mortuary. Like, I didn't realize that those are actual college degree programs you can go into. There's mortuary colleges where you can learn how to do that for a living.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Bernie Tita in Carthage?
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen the movie that Jack Black played Bernie.
Yeah. We were out that way not too long ago. But yeah, you can get a degree in, whether it's even in cosmetology, like prettying up the bodies and stuff, and there's a whole thing that goes into it, prepping the body for the big day, for the burial.
It takes a lot, and you have to make sure you do it right.
Yeah.
If not, imagine. Ooh.
But the impact that you have on families, I think, is understated with our vital statistics department that's at 815 North Broadway in Tyler, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. But like how you mentioned seeing a birth certificate and a death certificate of an infant within the same week. Or you may have a family where they're coming in to get a birth certificate and somebody from a different part of the family may be coming in to get a death certificate for somebody in that family. That may happen on the same day or the same week or within the same month.
Or, a parent comes to get a birth certificate and a death certificate together.
Oh, you've had that happen also?
We've had moms come in to get a birth certificate and then a death certificate. So they fill out one of each for their newborn.
But that just alludes to the touch points that you have on families in Tyler. Like, I'm an advocate. Eventually, you need to get a key to the city.
Yeah.
One of those ceremonial, like, it may not seriously, because just think of how many people that live in Tyler that have come to you for a birth certificate or a death certificate. You've probably encountered, I don't know if you can put an actual number on it, but you've probably a lot of people in Tyler know you. You may not know everybody, but a lot of people know you because the importance of a birth certificate and the importance of a death certificate, you don't realize it until you actually need it. And when it's time to get one, they're going to be seeing you, Rosie, or Marisol, or Priscilla.
Well, they'll remember us, too, from the times where we tell them that we can't give it to them. And they're probably not happy with us.
But they'll get over it the next day.
Well, let's hope.
Or if they come back again, are they still upset? Or they like, I remember the last time I came here, you didn't let me get
We've actually had some that, go back and they're still a little upset. But then there's some that come back and they're like, oh, I'm sorry for acting,
getting ugly.
Acting like
no
that.
reason.
I was just frustrated because DPS or, it's always DPS.
They give the real reason. Like they're just taking their anger out on you.
Yes. It's like, sorry. I mean, we need to go by these guidelines. They're state guidelines. So it's not because we're trying to be ugly. It's just.
You're just doing your job.
We're doing our job. Trying to protect your identity. They don't see it that way, though.
But no reason to get ugly.
No, there really isn't. I mean,
over trivial things.
There really isn't.
This was an unexpected, heavy, but lighthearted topic to cover of birth certificates and death certificates.
I love this topic.
Birth records and death records. The living library, as I will now call it now.
Yeah. It's getting bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Soon we're going to run out of space.
Yeah.
I feel like when we were talking about everything that happens there, if we would have like, a live cam with like like a live show,
Turning
God,
it into
it'd be so fun.
a reality TV show.
Okay, so would it be a sitcom or would it be a drama? Would it be a dramedy?
It could probably
Would it be
fit whatever stencil you wanted it to be.
Yeah,
There's a wide
yeah.
variety of conversations that happen down there, I'm sure. But Rosie, we're coming up. We're coming up on an hour and a half. This is probably one of our longer episodes, but this was an exciting topic. We're glad that you came and shed a little light on it. We'll probably likely
y'all.
have you back at some point. I think that'd be a good stopping point. Where can people go to find more info about Vital Stats or what it costs to get a birth or death certificate from you guys?
They can go to mynethealth.org and look for our vital statistics.
Fantastic. I'll be sure to put that link in the show notes as well, folks, for y'all to be able to get a little bit more info for you guys who live in Tyler or surrounding the surrounding area, so y'all can get plugged in and maybe even stop by and see Rosie Meza in the Vital Stats crew at 815 North Broadway.
Y'all should have this memorized by now.
Tyler, Texas, 75702. Yeah.
And next time y'all have to go to the municipal court, you can say, "Oh, I know where that is. That's next to the Vital Statistics office." Yeah. It's like, I'm just going to switch it.
Mm-hmm.
But as always, we appreciate y'all tuning in. Stay tuned for our next episode. We don't know who we're having on yet, but
why don't y'all send in some topic suggestions? You can email us at castingthenet@netphd.org. We want to tell what you want to hear. So let us know what public health topics you're curious about learning more information on. If there is a specific aspect of a birth certificate and or a death certificate that you'd like to have Rosie to come back on and talk about more in the future, let us know. If you have a specific family situation that relates to birth certificates and death certificates, if you want to learn about what it's like moving from California to Texas, actually that's both of y'all.
True. Yeah, we both spent some time in California.
Mm-hmm.
But given the nature of the topic today and some of the events that unfold down at our Vital Stats department, I would like to end with a little quote here. So I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toils of my labors under the sun, because sometimes a person who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skills must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil or labor for it. It's Ecclesiastes 2, verses 20 through 22. So the concept of people being up in arms for trivial things. And again, no reason to get bent out of shape at our Vital Stats department if things do not turn out to your favor in any given scenario. Mm-hmm. So we'll end with that. Be nice to Rosie. Be kind to our Rosie Meza. We care about her. She does a great job. All the ladies down at Vital Stats do a great job. Yes. So just be kind. Be kind, folks. We'll help you to the best of our ability, and we'll end on that. Yep. So thanks for tuning in again, and until next time.